and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling your request to break down this upcoming election and all the stuff swirling around about how legit it'll be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear ya.
We've got some really good reporting here from 5 Minute News and The Atlantic on this, and we really want to equip you with what's going on here and what's at stake.
It's kind of wild how history seems to be repeating itself, don't you think? Like, especially when we look at how Donald Trump is handling this election.
Yeah, it's like we're watching 2020 all over again. Like, Trump is already talking about potential cheating and getting ready to challenge the results if he loses again. He even said, if we can keep that cheating down, which, come on, that's got to raise some eyebrows.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that kind of talk is exactly what he did in 2020. Like, remember when he declared victory way too early?
Oh, yeah.
And how he basically encouraged those people protesting the election results?
Right.
And don't even get me started on him saying he might pardon the folks involved in that January 6th mess.
It feels like he's just going to do the exact same stuff that caused all that chaos last time. And it's not just talk this time either.
No, not at all.
There's a real plan behind it.
Absolutely. It's super deliberate, like a multi-pronged strategy coming straight from the Trump campaign and the RNC.
Okay.
And guess who's leading the charge?
Ooh.
Laura Trump.
Hold up. As in Donald Trump's daughter-in-law.
Yep, her. And they're basically taking a page right out of the 2020 playbook.
Yeah.
They've already got lawsuits, flying, challenging voter rolls, and saying there are all these irregularities. It's like Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon all over again.
So is the goal just to stir up the media, get everyone worked up, even if these accusations are bogus?
It's not just about making headlines.
Yeah.
It's like they're planting these seeds of doubt. Even if the courts throw out these lawsuits, the idea that the whole voting system is messed up sticks around. It kind of eats away at people's trust in the election itself.
So it's less about actually winning in court and more about winning over public opinion.
Exactly.
Controlling the narrative. Gotcha. And speaking of narratives, there's something different about how Trump's talking this time.
You mean about all this non-citizen voting stuff?
Exactly. He's really pushing that angle hard.
Interesting choice, isn't it? In 2020, it was all about the pandemic and how that would mess up the voting. Now it's all about all these non-citizens supposedly voting illegally.
But don't studies show that non-citizen voting is like super rare?
They do? Yeah, super rare, basically.
Yeah.
And yet you've got folks like Elon Musk backing up this story right alongside Trump.
Okay, so if there's not much evidence to back it up, why is he so focused on the non-citizen thing? What's the point?
It's all about discrediting the election before it even happens. By putting these concerns out there now, they're setting the stage to say any result they don't like is automatically rigged. It's like building this foundation for a whole conspiracy theory.
So they're basically saying the election is rigged before a single vote is cast? Bold move. But what about this whole secret plan Mike Johnson was talking about? That's where things get kind of juicy.
Oh, yeah. Johnson's comments about a secret plan to win have definitely got everyone buzzing. One theory is that Trump and his crew are thinking about something called a contingent election.
Contingent election. Okay, I'm going to need a little help with that one. What does that even mean?
Picture this. No candidate gets a majority of the Electoral College votes. It's a total tie. In that case, the House of Representatives gets to pick the president.
Okay, so far so good. But what's so special about this contingent election?
Here's the twist. Each state's delegation gets a single vote, instead of each representative getting their own.
I see where this is going, with the Republicans controlling more state delegations right now.
Right. It could give Trump a way to win, even if he loses the popular vote and doesn't get enough votes in the Electoral College.
Wow. So this secret plan could be all about playing games with the Electoral College itself.
Whether or not it's the plan, just the fact that a contingent election could happen throws a whole lot more uncertainty into an already tense situation.
Okay, so we've got the lawsuits, the non-citizen voting thing, and this whole contingent election scenario. Is there anything else we should be watching out for?
Well, there's also the possibility of them trying to delay certifying the election results in some states.
Delaying certification. Why would they do that? Wouldn't that just drag things out even longer?
Think of it like this. The 12th Amendment says the president is the candidate with a majority of the whole number of electors appointed.
Right. So that's 538 electors. Yeah.
Right. Usually.
Yeah.
But imagine some states just stall and don't get their results certified by the December 11th deadline. Those electors might not count at all.
Oh, so they're not trying to swap out real electors for fake ones like some people were worried about in 2020. They're trying to shrink the total number of electors so it's easier to win with a smaller piece of the pie. Sneaky.
It's a strategy that depends on a very specific way of interpreting the Constitution. And it could totally change who wins the election.
So which states are we talking about here? Any specific ones to keep an eye on?
Watch the ones with Republican-controlled legislatures and governors. Places like Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, they're key battleground states. And we know some officials there have already said they don't trust past elections.
Yeah, like J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate. He's been pretty loud about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you add that to all the stuff coming from Trump, Johnson, Musk, and others about how elections are rigged, it creates this whole atmosphere.
It's like they're building this world where if they don't win, it automatically means something's wrong. And it's not just talk either. We saw those ballot drop boxes getting set on fire. That's scary stuff.
It is really concerning. Makes you wonder how far they'd be willing to go if things don't go their way.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. But on a slightly more positive note, what are people doing to fight back against all these threats? Are there any safeguards in place?
Yes. Thankfully, election officials, civil rights groups, legal experts, they're all getting ready. We're seeing more security, campaigns to teach voters about their rights, and legal strategies to fight back against any attempts to stop people from voting or mess with the process.
Didn't the Supreme Court just make a ruling about provisional ballots in Pennsylvania? That seemed pretty important.
That was a big win for voting rights. The court said officials have to count provisional ballots, even if there are small issues with the mail-in ballots that go with them. It's a step in the right direction.
Okay, so there's some hope there. Are legal experts feeling good about these attempts to mess with the election failing?
Most legal experts think these challenges will end up like the ones in 2020. They'll get thrown out, but that doesn't mean there won't be any damage. The constant chipping away at people's trust in democracy is a serious problem.
It's hard to believe in the system when you're constantly being told it's rigged. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Even if these specific plans don't work, the damage to how we do democracy could last a long time.
Okay, so we've talked about Trump's strategies, the potential threats to the election, and some of the ways people are fighting back. But there's one thing that's still bugging me. The whole thing with the comedian at that Trump rally.
Ah, yes. That was quite a moment. It shows us something really interesting about Trump's personality and how it affects his approach to politics.
So for those who missed it, can you give us a quick recap of what happened?
Trump was at a rally in Arizona, and they had this comedian as part of the warm-up act. This comedian has criticized Trump before, and he made some jokes that Trump didn't like.
And how did Trump react?
He seemed genuinely thrown off.
Yeah.
He got on stage and started ranting about this comedian, saying he had no clue who he was, and even denied knowing anyone on his team who would have booked him.
Which seems pretty hard to believe, considering this comedian has been making fun of Trump pretty openly for a while now.
Exactly. It's classic Trump deflection and denial. He always tries to distance himself from anything that makes him look bad, even if it means contradicting himself or the people around him.
It's almost like a metaphor for how he does politics, isn't it? Surrounded by chaos, attacking anyone who criticizes him, constantly trying to control the story.
It's a good comparison. And it also points to a problem Trump has, keeping his campaign disciplined and focused.
Yeah, it's hard to look strong and competent when you're publicly freaking out about a comedian. Makes you wonder if he can handle the pressure of being president.
It raises some good questions. It also suggests that sometimes Trump might be more worried about protecting his own ego than dealing with the real problems the country is facing.
Which is something we've seen over and over throughout his time in politics. So while this whole comedian thing might seem like a small blip, it actually tells us a lot about Trump's character and how he leads.
It's a fascinating little snapshot of how he approaches politics and governing.
And something voters should definitely think about as we get closer to Election Day. It really makes you think, like elections aren't just about the policies and promises. They're about the person who's going to be in charge. You know, their personality and how they handle things. That matters.
Big time. And when you're talking about the presidency, the stakes are huge. Voters have got to feel like their leader can handle whatever gets thrown at them, rise above the petty stuff and focus on the big picture.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Trump's strategies, those kind of scary potential threats to the election, and thankfully, some of the ways people are pushing back. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from all this?
This election is a turning point. Whatever happens will have a big impact on American democracy. Like we talked about, there are some real threats out there, but it's important to remember that there are people fighting back, people working hard to make sure the process is fair.
Yeah, it feels like we're at this crossroads. Like this election is a choice between two totally different ideas of what America should be.
You could say that, One side is all about sticking to democratic traditions, and the other seems like they're okay with bending the rules or even breaking them to get what they want. The stakes are sky high.
So what can our listener do? What's the best way to make sure our democracy makes it through this and hopefully comes out stronger?
Pay attention to what's going on. Get your information from sources you can trust. Don't get sucked into all the misinformation and fear-mongering.
Mm.
And most importantly, vote.
Yeah, your vote is your voice. It's the most powerful thing you have to shape the future of this country. To our listener, we hope this deep dive has helped you understand what's on the line in this election. We've explored the different players, the potential problems, and the things that give us hope.
The future of American democracy is in your hands. Stay involved, stay informed, and stay hopeful.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll leave you to think about everything we talked about today. Until next time.